Hi Andy. Hi Nicholas. Hi everyone. Hi Sherry. Hi guys. Hi Evie. Or Evie. Thank you, Nicholas. So, hi Tumble Buddy. Hi Prexis. There is a lot to cover today. An incredible amount of stuff. Thank you so much. Today is one of the most important days, I want to say, in Ukrainian history as a whole. Hi, Prexis. Hi, Tammy. Today is one of those days where I was genuinely crying, but for incredibly other reasons than I have since February 24th. And I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to start crying again, and no one wants to cry on live. Hi, Charles. Hi, Jack. Thank you so much. Hi, Maria Elise. Hi, Alexia. It's not even proud, you know? It's not even proud. It's words can't express what a Ukrainian person is feeling looking at these battles, especially for the battle for Donetsk airport. A lot of you might not know because this is particularly the battle for Donetsk airport and the Donetsk cyborgs is how Azov military became labeled Nazis in the world arena by Russians. And the fact that Ukrainians today have returned the Donetsk airport back home is one of the most historic moments in Ukrainian history that I think most people from Donetsk, hi Nani Ria, hi Beatrice, where, losing hope would happen. It's been 8 years. And the battle for Donetsk is something that I will be talking about, Heroyam Slava Grumpy, that I will be talking about today in order to give you a little bit of an idea of how Azov became cyborgs, how the battle for Donetsk airport progressed, and how Donetsk airport was the last beacon of light for Donetsk staying in Ukrainian hands, and how that last beacon of light was absolutely annihilated, pretty much. Hi, Kay. There's so much news today that it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep track. I keep seeing jokes on behalf of international war analysts saying that maps are BS because you produce a map and an hour later it's not relevant anymore. And that's very true because from what we've been seeing for the past 72 hours, I want to say, is that anytime a map comes out, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, an hour later, it's irrelevant. Hi, Mario. It's not that I'm proud. It's that, hi, D. Gilmore. It's not that I'm proud. It's that I am almost in disbelief. And I am so, for the first time in a while, I lack words. I lack words really because all I can think of is all the people who have been living in occupation and filtration, who have been living under Russian authorities and who have been wronged and whose apartments and homes have been raided and taken away from them, and who have felt not only not free, but they have felt suffocated in their own homes, in their own cities. And watching the videos of welcome the armed forces of Ukraine, There is very little I can say on this subject because really I don't know how to even express these emotions. I really don't. I I bawled half of the night last night. And for the first time since the beginning of this full-scale invasion, it was happy tears. And I was so overcome by so many different emotions that I genuinely can't even explain half of them. Hi, Lauren, and hi, Sasha. It's just such an emotional overload. You know, it's one of those things where the world is watching in awe, and the world is posting memes about Ukraine is the coolest country in the world right now. How the Ukrainian military, the coolest military in the world. How NATO should apply to be a part of Ukrainian military and stuff like that. And for someone who's Ukrainian, it's funny and it's really sweet to see that the world finally supports us. But it's also like, um, and it's also like not funny because, first of all, one of the things that no one's talking about is the immense amount of losses that an offensive like that takes. And I don't mean losses because the offensive is not going successful. I mean men who willingly and knowingly sacrifice their lives to protect their country. Men who are so incredibly brave and so incredibly selfless that they dive into this battle knowing that they're not going to come back. And that's the part of the offensive that no one's talking about outside of the memes and outside of all of these things, is that there are so many incredible men who sacrifice themselves once again to make all of these memes on Twitter possible. And while I'm incredibly proud that everybody's talking about the Ukrainian army today, one of the things that I do want to say is to the international war experts and to the international accredited, reputable publications: shut your mouth and stop making predictions. Because as far as I'm concerned, a month ago, you were saying Ukraine needs a miracle, not weapons. You were producing articles in mass saying that that we should stop shipments to Ukraine of weapons because that's not going to change anything. A month ago, you were saying that nothing is going to help Ukraine and NATO's strategy is not right. A month ago, a lot of you were saying that it'll be a miracle if Ukraine manages to complete any of its goals by wintertime. A month ago, you were criticizing everything we were doing. A month ago, you were saying that we're selling weapons on the black market. A month ago, you were cheering on Russian propaganda. So it's not a favor I'm asking you to do. It's something I'm quite literally telling you to do as a Ukrainian person who is hurt by these disgusting, uninformed statements aimed at views, reads, and money. Shut your mouth, sit back, and watch it happen. And stop making uninformed predictions without quite literally knowing anything other than listening to rumors and perpetuating them. Heroyam Slava. So that's one of the things that I really, really want to bring up, because it's been, one of the things that I have realized while this war has been going on is that how little the media cares about the people who participate. How little the media cares about the people who are affected. How little the media cares in general about anything but views, reposts, retweets, and money that they make out of the articles. Because every person and every person's tragedy is just a story. Every rumor is a story. Every damaging narrative that hurts people is a story. It's a piggy bank. So, being a Ukrainian person and reading all of these things about Ukraine selling arms on the black market, Ukraine doing this, Ukraine doing that, stop it. Just stop it. It's genuinely disgusting because while you count dollars and you count stories and you count headlines, we count lives gained and lost. Now on to the good stuff. So you recaptured, Ukraine has liberated. My dad said something to me today and he said, well, this is what a special military operation actually looks like. Months and months of planning and impeccable execution. My dad has known about this offensive, as it turns out, since 2 weeks ago. And he said when he first heard about their plans and all of the Tatiana they're planning on recapturing, he was like, he thought that they were crazy. He didn't tell me about any of this because in his words, I'm a reporter, thank you for the compliment, and that he OPSEC. OPSEC. And as for him, there is a lot more news that are going to come out. And one of the things that we shan't do is celebrate too early, because here's the thing: we are making very, very, very incredible progress. We are making very, very incredible gains. But the main point of the operation right now, the main point of the operation, the main target of the operation right now is to keep Izum and is to keep Liman and is to keep Kupiansk. Now, Kupiansk is a huge military hub because before the invasion even started, for us, Kupiansk was where most of our ammo bases were. Now, we have recaptured Kupiansk, we have recaptured our ammo bases, and not only was there our ammunition there, there was also ammunition that Russians now have stored there. So we have enough ammo to keep us over until the Lend-Lease starts. So that's incredible, incredible news. Kupiansk is also a huge transportation hub for railroads. Russia losing Kupiansk means that all of those North Korea weapons that they have purchased are not going to be able to make it to them. That's one. Two, their entire logistics is built on their special divisions that they have for railroad reinforcements. So cutting them off of railroads ruins their entire logistics. So, but it also adds to our logistics and makes it easier to deliver weapons to the front. Which is incredible. Very much incredible. Same with Izum. So now the objective is to keep Izum and to keep Kupiansk. Now, another thing that happened is reportedly the Ukrainian military has recaptured Donetsk airport. Why is that significant? The Donetsk airport is a very famous battle in Ukrainian history. It lasted 244 days. And this is how Azov became a famous battalion, and this is how they became labeled as Nazis in the world arena by Russians, because they were incredibly effective. And they held the defense of Donetsk airport for 244 days. If you are impressed by Azovstal and the guys and the boys from Azovstal, from Azov, who were holding the defense of the steel plant, Donetsk airport was just as impressive. It was about the same situation. They were outnumbered, and this was the last beacon of light. Donetsk was captured in 2014. And the last disputed area that Ukrainians held the defense for was the battle for Donetsk International Airport. Donetsk International Airport basically separates the line between the captured city and Ukrainians, right? Between the captured territory. There was the first battle for Donetsk Airport and the second battle for Donetsk Airport. The first battle lasted 1 day, and it ended up being in Ukrainian hands. The Minsk agreement was signed and the ceasefire was ordered, but obviously Russians did not hold on to the ceasefire, and they kept attacking Ukrainian forces, and they kept trying to recapture the airport in Donetsk. The ATO army and Azov forces, who were later named as cyborgs because of how they managed to keep the defense of the Donetsk airport, held it for 244 days in incredible battles. The Donetsk airport was completely ruined, and after 244 days, Russians took over, and Ukrainian forces were either forced to retreat, were unalived, or were captured. And those forces were later named in Ukrainian history as cyborgs because of how effective, how invincible, and how incredible they were at keeping that line of defense, the last standing part of Ukraine in the captured Donetsk. And unfortunately, Russians managed to recapture it. I don't know these images before. They are actually on the quite literally my thumbnail, but they were everywhere. I will show you. Donetsk airport battle. This was Donetsk airport. This was Donetsk International Airport, one of the most modern airports in Ukraine. It was recently refinished. It was recently rebuilt. It was kind of Donetsk pride and joy. This is what it looked like from further away. And this is what was left of Donetsk International Airport after Russians came over. And this image in particular has made it to a lot of international media, to a lot of international publications. And this is when you were seeing all of the news about the Ukrainian neo-Nazi battalion in the civil war fighting in Donetsk, fighting the people of Donetsk who were Russian-speaking, who wanted to be a part of Russia. What we haven't been hearing is that the Azov battalion in Donetsk, where those Russian-speaking people from Donetsk who picked up arms and went to defend their cities from Russians. Russian-speaking Ukrainians who went to defend their cities from Russian separatists and invaders. By no means were they neo-Nazis who were fighting Russians or Russian-speaking Ukrainians who wanted Donetsk to separate. By all means were they quite literally the residents born and raised in Donetsk and Luhansk regions, fighting for their homes and fighting so incredibly, impressively, fearlessly, invincibly, and so incredibly heroically. And those are the Azov battalion, not what they were portrayed as, because Russia was scared shitless of them. The reason they were portrayed to you in the mainstream media as Neo-Nazi battalion who was like doing all of these atrocities is because of how effective they were and because of how much Russians were trembling at the mere name of Azov battalion. Because those guys, being so outnumbered, were still destroying Russians at Donetsk airport. And today, I think it's a very important day for every resident of Donetsk who had to flee, who had to leave their home, who had to be internally displaced, externally displaced, because it's the revenge. It's the revenge for all of the fallen cyborgs. It's the revenge for all of the people of Donetsk. It's the revenge for all of the people of Luhansk. Poli-sci, it's a bot. Just block it. Just delete it. She's saying that, or it is saying that Azov is using people as human shield. I don't even have, honestly, today I'm not gonna answer any bots, any like Russian trolls. If you're a Russian troll and you came here for a fun time, you want to make your 5 rubles, you can leave now because I'm not gonna pay any attention to you, and every single person on here knows you're a Russian bot. So, adios. Anyways, I think today is such an important and emotional day for every single person who had to flee Donetsk, who had to flee Luhansk because of the invasion, who had to flee their homes, because they get to see their revenge and they get to see their home come back to Ukraine. And apparently there is much more news coming out in the next couple of days, and apparently there is much more news coming out in tonight. So there's supposed to be news that are overwhelming. It's supposed to break tonight. There is supposed to be incredible news that breaks tomorrow. There have been some hints about Kherson area because no one forgot about Kherson area. There is supposed to be news about Donetsk area. We don't know even the 50% of what's going on in the front lines right now. So with that said, I'm going to say that it's probably a good time to dive into the news. There is just so much happening today. It's absolutely almost impossible to keep up, genuinely. It's just updates on top of updates on top of updates. But the thing is that these updates from official sources also are not nearly as the updates from the official sources are not nearly as crazy as the updates that I'm finding on Twitter, the updates that I'm finding from OSINT, the updates that I'm finding from Frontline journalists, because obviously the official sources, High Truthful, are trying to not, release everything right away and not kind of like blow up OPSEC and sort of not release everything at the same time. But with that said, Twitter has been blowing up with so much different information, so many updates. I repost a lot of updates on Twitter. If you guys use Twitter, I would highly recommend to follow me on Twitter because it's been like a never-ending stream of information, and none of this stuff I can post on here or on here because, well, simply censorship, right? But on Twitter, there is so much information, and all of this information is incredible, and there are so many videos and just there is so much going on. There's so many graphic videos. Yes, it is my main account. Hi. There's so many graphic videos of Russian soldiers completely annihilated. There's so many videos of Ukrainians recapturing ammunition. There's so many videos of just everything that's going on in the front lines. And I try to repost as much as I can, but I also don't want to like clutter people's feeds, you know? I also have an idea of something that I want to design today, kind of in support of everything that's happening that revolves around the letter Y. As I said, the letter Y is the new resistance symbol. Well, not new, but most recent one. So yes. No, Veronica, you did not miss. You did not miss much. My account on Twitter is the same as my accounts everywhere. Basically, you can follow me on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and well, I do have a Patreon, and they're all the same. Well, the Patreon is a little different, but you can find it in my link in bio, and it's also attached to my YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's attached to my Twitch. But yeah, you can find all of my, if you want to find me on any sort of social media, it's going to be under the same name as all of my social media, basically. It's the same name across the board except for Patreon. Patreon is Spy News Network, INTL, International. You heard about like Kyiv regiment, people from Belarus. Stay strong. Also, there have been a lot of updates today about Moscow. Apparently, the central square in Moscow has been circled off. There has been a lot of commotion and no one knows what's going on. And it does look like there is some sort of huge motion happening in Moscow. And speculation is that it might be contra Putin. And speculation is that the military doesn't want to go into the battle because they see what's happening. Thank you, Mario. And the speculation is that there might be big news coming out of Moscow, which we will see. I mean, to be fair, I don't care what happens to Russians and Russia at this point anymore. They quite literally did nothing to stop this, and they did nothing to help us, really. But for the sake of the war ending, hi, Lisa. Or Liza, sorry. So for the sake of the war ending and for the sake of, Putin just hopefully being like, I don't know, taken out by some means, I hope that, that is true. As to like Russian support, it really, no matter what they do, it doesn't change anything anymore because it's too late. Okay, without any further ado, hey guys, the insane person who has created 1 million accounts and is quite literally a stalker is back on YouTube. So please, please take care of that if you can. There is a troll that had created like 100 something accounts at this point. Well, no, it was 70. It was 70 something yesterday. It was 76 or something like that. By yesterday in the last 3 days. So, I have a stalker. Quite lovely. Quite a lovely thing to have. Anyways, okay, well, let's deep dive into the news for today. I'm going to start with some news that happened yesterday because I just need to catch you up on everything. So Ukraine has recaptured the village of Shevchenkovo, and the village plate has been repainted from the Russian rag colors into the Ukrainian colors. And here is the Ukrainian military. Hi, Isaac. In front of it with their blue bands. 50,000 women serve in the armed forces of Ukraine. 5,000 of them take part in active hostilities. Take a look.
The armed forces of 50,000 people is a lot or not enough. Ukraine is currently fighting for its freedom. And 50,000 service personnel are only a part of the armed forces of this country. And this part are women. What do they do in this war? Why has the number of women in the Ukrainian army increased sharply twice in recent years? And are there women with the rank of general? United 24 will tell about the unique women of the Ukrainian army. Currently, there are many women in the armed forces of Ukraine who are real professionals. There are combat doctors, tankers, gunners, snappers, and even deep-sea military diving instructors among them.
Сучасна армія – це місце для професіоналів. Неважливо, чоловік чи жінка. Де мають іти лише ті, хто добре вміє виконувати свою роботу. Раніше ми воювали людьми. Мені треба вчитися воювати вмінням. Я буду в армії, бо я вмію це робити краще за інших.
More than 50,000 women are in the Ukrainian armed forces. 37 are military personnel. All others work in the army in civilian positions. Right now, on the front line, there are about 5,000 women. There are many officer ranks among them, and not only junior ones. Thus, in December 2021, there were 1,054 women among senior officers. Thanks to their professionalism, they command entire detachments and do it successfully. But what made women decide to go into the military? Here's just one story out of many. Irina has changed journalism and the camera to the front and a machine gun.
З моменту, коли починається повномасштабне вторгнення і у нас намагаються забрати країну, війна – це не справа жінок чи чоловіків, війна – це справа громадян цієї країни. Тому будь-хто, хто має достатньо сили, хто має навики, повинен йти її захищати. А хто не має, повинен обов'язково тренуватися і бути готовим замінити тих, хто тут на передовій поранений або загинув.
Women really carry out even the most difficult tasks at the front lines. However, is it possible for a woman to get the main army rank, general? Tatiana Ostashchenko started her service as the head of the pharmacy of the military unit. Fast forward to 2021. Ostashchenko receives the rank of brigadier general and the post of the medical forces commander from President Zelensky. This event is unusual for the world as well. For example, the first female commander in NATO countries appeared only in 2018, when Alenka Erman became the head of the General Staff of Slovenia. Speaking of NATO, since 2000, the number of women in military service of allied forces has doubled, and 85% of NATO member states have opened all positions in their armed forces to women. Meaning now women can hold any position in the army in any branch of the military, including combat specialties. Precisely as it is in Ukraine, by the way. The Ukrainian armed forces demonstrate considerable gender equality. Thus, as of December 2021, the percentage of women in the army was 22%. This is one of the highest rates in Europe. For now, the percentage of armed forces is not disclosed due to secrecy. However, what is known for sure is that the number of women in the armed forces increased sharply twice in history, in 2014 and 2022. Why exactly these dates is explained simply. In 2014, Crimea was seized, and a hybrid war began in eastern Ukraine. And in 2022, a full-scale invasion took place. 7,000 women joined the ranks of the armed forces right after that. Ukrainian women go to war as they know that this is the way they protect their native land, no matter how hard it is.
Ситуація по всій лінії фронту складна. Орки йдуть вперед, ми їм даємо гідну відсіч. Нам не вистачає артилерії. Ми компенсовуємо наші технічні недостатки нашими професійними якостями. Бойовий дух високий. Хлопців і дівчат дуже важко відправити на вихідні, тому що вони переживають, що без них почнеться якась двіжуха, а ми не будемо брати участь. Тому обов'язково поборемо. Слава Україні!
The forces of good can defeat the darkness and stop the war. However, they need your help. Share this video, subscribe to United 24, and make a donation so that the war in Ukraine ends with the victory of the women and men of the country of freedom.
Yeah, Cindy is snoring. I know, Cindy's snores are, taking away a little bit from the video. Cindy, come here. Hey, Grumpkins, Grumpkins, come here. Grumpkins. She doesn't want to. She's a little too, it's too picky. Ukrainian air defense forces defend the sky perfectly, but they need more weapons. Spokesperson for the Ukrainian Air Force, Yuri Ignat. The Air Force fights mainly with old Soviet means, but using all kinds of tactics, it manages to defend the sky reliably. Hi, Gap. We have developed a notification system. We counter missiles thanks to anti-aircraft missile systems, fighter jets, and there are people with manpads deployed all over the country to respond and intercept missiles. They're visual observation posts. A pink hat was worn at the railway station in Kalush. The town of Kalush is the hometown of Oleg Psyuk, the frontman of the Kalush band. There we go. Soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine showed how the positions of the invaders are being shelled with the help of Grad. Дякую. Russia is involved in the war in Ukraine with more than 80% of the ground forces, NATO Secretary General. He added that the war in Ukraine is entering a critical phase. Ukrainian forces managed to stop the Russian offensive in the Donbass, strike back, and take control of the territory again. Latvia and Poland have accelerated negotiations on Ukraine's accession to the EU. President of Latvia, Egils Levits, stressed during his visit to Kyiv. Ukraine not only politically and culturally belongs to the European family, but also should be a member of the EU because of the European Union and a union of free democratic countries, he said. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, presented the Order of Merit, First Class, to Haluk Bayraktar, General Director of the Turkish company Baykar. Hi, Mike.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks very much for your support and people of Turkey for supporting this war against Russian occupation. Thank you very much. This is like this. Okay. This is from Bayraktar. So they give us not only drones, you see, they give us to protect Ukraine from the bad.
Several EU countries fear that Moscow could retaliate if it sets a ceiling on Russian gas prices and stops supplies altogether, writes the Financial Times. The IAEA demands an immediate cessation of hostilities near Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the organization's Director General Rafael Grossi said in a video message. I'm going to download this message and I'm going to save it and I'm going to show it to you full screen on YouTube. So for someone on YouTube who's worried about a copyright because music, I do this every day, and usually if I get a copyright strike, it's not a strike, I get a copyright claim, and my videos are not able to be shown in Russia and Belarus, which, to be fair, I don't mind. Because the music is not allowed in Russia or Belarus. And boa tarde, Volasi. Good to see you. Here is, let me set this up really quick, and because I want people on TikTok and people on YouTube to be able to see this good quality, because you guys know there's going to be lots of Twitter updates for all of you. If you should see legible, visible, let me know. Mirror your screen, and I am going to share the video. Let's do that. Okay.
Shelling has caused a complete blackout in Energodar and compromised the safety operation of the nearby Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. There is now a low chance that reliable off-site power can be restored. The shelling is putting in danger operators and their families, making it difficult to adequately staff the plant. Together, this has significantly increased the risk of a nuclear accident. Let me be clear. The shelling around Zaporizhia nuclear power plant must stop, and a nuclear safety and security protection zone agreed immediately. A nuclear power plant can never be a pawn of war. Its fate must not be decided by military means. The consequences of such action are far too grave. The IAEA is at Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and can facilitate the zone's implementation. There is no time to waste.
So actually, Crazy Cat is saying something very important on YouTube, and I'm going to make that full. I'm going to highlight that question, and I'm going to answer it. Well, it's not a question, it's a statement, and I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit. Crazy Cat here says, I don't think Putin can hide how bad things are from the Russian people anymore. You are quite right in that, actually. So one of the things that I was bringing up in the beginning of the stream is that in Russia, near the Kremlin, there is some commotion going on. And a lot of people are very interested in what that commotion is, and a lot of people are scared of what that commotion entails, because it looks like the entire perimeter of the Red Square has been circled off. There is some commotion in the military. There is some commotion in the military, which looks like the military personnel does not want to go to fight, and the military personnel is starting to rebel. Another thing is that the Russian media at this point is quite literally not even trying to hide that the Russian media at this point is really not trying to hide what's happening on the front lines anymore. Their main propagandist, who is super not scared of going into the battle, he's like quite literally like, the only like thing that I will give him is that he's not scared of being in the actual bullets. He's not just the guy who records the pretty picture for Moscow, right? Like, he actually will be there when there is shelling. He will be there when the Ukrainian army is striking. So he is not scared of risking his life. He yesterday posted a video saying that he's changing his tire. Hi, Yum, good to see you. That he's changing his tire and he's getting out of Izum because there's the only last pocket through which he can get out of Izum, and after that, they're done. Russian sources, Russian propaganda, like Russian unaffiliated media who are propaganda, quite literally at this point are not even trying to push the propaganda anymore. They are cursing at the government, and they're cursing at how they can't keep up this charade anymore, and they're cursing at how this is too much, and you can't keep saying that everything is going according to plan when it's going this way. They keep citing the fact that there's losses. They keep citing the fact that people are freaking out. They keep citing the fact, like, Russian propaganda channels on Telegram are freaking out right now. And I mean quite literally, like, losing their mind. There were so many different screenshots that I've been looking at yesterday. Some of them I've reposted on Twitter, that I've been looking at yesterday on Twitter, that quite literally were like, this is too much. This is a charade. We cannot keep up this charade. Like, everything is blowing up. Everyone is blowing up. The Ukrainians are striking. This is like shelling nonstop. The Ukrainians are in super close contact. Our military is running away. And those that are not running away are literally are unalived, because the Ukrainians are just making a big, huge storm. And at this point, it's very interesting that you said that, because Putin, since the beginning of this entire thing, has not said a word of anything that has been going on. So there's really nothing he can do, because I am pretty sure that he in the Kremlin is like sitting there and quite literally freaking out, because how do you keep this charade from going? How do you keep this charade from becoming public? How do you? There is really no way to do so, right? At this point, there is not only Ukrainian media reporting on it, the Western media at this point stopped saying things like, oh, weapons are not going to help Ukraine. Everybody is in awe. The entire world is watching. And to top it off, your main propagandists don't even have anything to say. You know, Skabeeva is one of the main propagandists in Russia. Heroyam Slava. And Skabeeva is one of the main propagandists in Russia. She has her own TV show, as does Solovyov and as does Simonyan, all of these people. As do all of these people, right? As do all of these people. And so the funny thing is that the other day on air of one of her TV shows, Skabeeva was asked about the Ukrainian offensive. And she quite literally couldn't say anything other than, well, I don't understand how these people think. I don't know what their end goal is, but I quite literally can't understand how these people in Ukraine are thinking that they are going to defeat a nuclear power. But the thing is, here is the problem with that statement, right? Before I even go into the whole nuclear power thing and how this is irrelevant, right? It is irrelevant. It is irrelevant whether you are a nuclear power, because it's not the nukes that are fighting the Ukrainian army on the ground, right? It's the Russian soldiers, and they're, as we have seen, quite inept at their jobs. So this was a very, very, very unprepared statement of someone who quite literally didn't know what to say and didn't have any propaganda prepared to rebuff what has been happening, because it's nearly impossible. And two, here is the thing. What do you mean Russian nukes? What do you mean how is Ukraine planning on defeating a nuclear superpower? What are you going to do? Are you going to nuke Ukraine? Because they can't do that. I've talked about it briefly yesterday, but there is a very interesting thing. So there are different types of nukes, and there are different trajectories of these nukes, and they're also different, they're also very different sort of distances at which not only is there a maximum distance for a nuke, there is also a minimum distance for a nuke. So the way that Russian nukes are built is that they can't be sent from anywhere in the territory of Russia without striking Russia unless they're sent from Kamchatka, right? Kamchatka is very far deep into Russia and bordering China. So if Russia were to send a nuke from the particular place in Kamchatka from which it would land particularly in Ukraine, then they would hit the territory of China through the blast from the nuke launching. And they can't do that because, as we all know, China, in fact, is a nuclear power, and China is getting quite tired of Russia. And as we can see, China is kind of severing their ties. They're still playing a game. We know it's China. China likes playing games. China cares about their economy. But at the same time, it's very evident that they can't do that, and they wouldn't risk doing that, right? Another thing is, we don't know if their nukes even work. And another thing is, if they make an error in judgment, and let's say they wanted to nuke Ukraine, which I know they wouldn't. They don't even know if their nukes work. They haven't been maintained since the Cold War. Honestly, like the likelihood of a nuke that Russia launches blowing up in Russia is higher than Russia launching a nuke itself, because they don't know which ones of them are maintained, which ones of them are good, and which ones of them are not. Because you gotta maintain nukes. So this whole thing about Russia being a nuclear superpower is a joke. It's a joke. They don't even know themselves which of their nukes work and how many of them are in a condition in which they can actually even use them. So that's the thing. If they were to launch a nuke and they were to make an error in judgment, they could exactly hit Poland by mistake. And if they were to hit Poland by mistake, the NATO, Article 5, and they know that that will be the end of them. Also, someone who is trying to rebirth an empire understands that nukes are mutual destruction, right? So if they're using a nuke is going to be used back on them. And someone who's trying to rebuild an empire, someone who's trying to have these imperialistic views, right, is too narcissistic to destroy themselves. So there is that little situation there, right? So all in all, the likelihood of Russia launching nukes is very small. The Russian nukes and their maintenance is also under a very big question. So them even using the nuclear power as a rebuff is, hi Gentle Artist, and hi Keith, and hi Sean, and hi Dave, and hi Pitbull Terrier, and hi Charles, hi everybody on YouTube, hi everybody on Twitch, and hi everybody on TikTok. So the likelihood of them using these things is very, very small. And the likelihood of them really kind of doing anything that could be detrimental to anybody but them is also very, very small. And they for sure know that if they do anything, if they do any single thing that will trigger NATO, or even just the American army by itself, well, which that will trigger NATO. So if they do anything that triggers NATO, they absolutely will they will get annihilated. And they know that they can't take on the American army. Hell, you can see that they can't take on the Ukrainian army. Ruski Suck says, I don't get your point. There are small tactical low-level nukes that are low yield, doesn't matter where they're launched from, that or a dirty bomb nuke power plant is what they would do. Okay, yes, the nuclear power plant is what they could do, right? They've been at the nuclear power plant for a while. That has been the concern. I just played the video from IAEA. Yes, the nuclear power plant is a concern. Ukraine is a nuclear country, just not in a traditional sense, but in a sense of how many nuclear power plants we have. But blowing out the nuclear power plant and using a nuclear weapon is a very different thing. Is a very, very, very different thing. And Russia has what Russia says they have versus what actual military analysts have been saying since the nuclear military analysts have been saying since the beginning of the invasion is very different. The only nukes that Russia could launch are the nukes that have a minimum distance, and it would matter where they launch them from because they would land in places either in Russia or they would land further and they would hit the territory of a NATO country. Any credible evidence that the Donetsk airport has been taken? Yes, but I can't share it because at this point we have to wait for, at this point, because it's OPSEC and because there is a lot going on Twitter and a lot of it is real. And Twitter always has news updates much faster than the official news updates, right? But it's a hit or miss because sometimes it's called too early, sometimes like it's not a credible source, sometimes it's something like that. I do have my credible sources that Donetsk airport has been taken, but I can't share them for operational security. So you're gonna have to wait for the official confirmation of the Ukrainian authorities. A big day of news is supposed to come tomorrow. Every single independent journalist on the front lines of Ukraine is very vocal about the fact that there is a lot coming out tomorrow that they can't yet share today. And that if your jaw dropped today, then tomorrow is going to be even more, thank you so much, Rainbow. Then tomorrow is going to be even more so. Your jaw is going to drop even lower because there is supposed to be a lot of news coming out. With that said, I was talking earlier, but there were less people, so I'm going to reiterate that. One of the two main objectives for Ukraine right now is keeping Kupiansk and keeping Izum, because Kupiansk and Izum are both incredibly, incredibly important strategic points, not only for Russia, but for Ukraine. Kupiansk is a railroad connection heaven. Railroad connection heaven. So Russia's entire front right now is being undermined because their main logistics are quite literally built on their railroad supplies. They have special dedicated teams that manage their railroad logistics. Their railroad logistics are their pride and joy, and probably, arguably, the only thing in their military that actually does work, where people do know what they're doing. Now, one of their biggest railroad connection hubs has been taken back by Ukraine, and that is Kupiansk and that is Izum. So that is going to make it incredibly difficult for them to get reinforcements that they already are lacking in, right? So those weapons that they bought from North Korea, the weapons that were even older than the 1964 weapons we've seen already, they're not going to be able to make it to the front lines. Then the next thing that's going to happen is Ukraine needs to keep these two territories. They're incredibly strategically important. So if Ukraine manages to hold on to those two territories, that is a point of no return for Russia. That is a point of absolute no return for Russia, where the card house crumbles. Another very interesting thing about Kupiansk and Izum is that that's where the Ukrainian ammo bases were before the invasion. And that's one of the things that put us quite drastically, is the fact that they have captured our towns where we have capped our ammunition. And so now this is a very big thing that Ukraine has recaptured, because not only do we have our ammo bases back, we also have the ammo that Russians have left there. Not back, but we now have that. And here's the thing. So again, I cannot necessarily talk about sources, but my dad's former employee is at the front lines, and he is quite literally in that hell, and he does give my dad an incredible amount of information. Today, I found out that my dad was aware about this entire offensive for the past 2 weeks and wasn't telling me anything because, quote unquote, you are a reporter. So unfortunately, my dad holds quite a bit of stuff from me. He did say that we should be expecting a lot of breaking news tomorrow, and he did say that we should be expecting a lot of breaking news probably, I would say, late tonight through tomorrow. There is going to be a lot of stuff happening. Now, my ADHD prevents me from remembering where I started this from, but something about ammo bases and my dad. Oh, so he said that basically, counting everything that they have counted so far from the ammunition that we have captured from Russians and ammunition that we have, Dad has the best OPSEC. Honestly, Dad is great for Ukraine, terrible for me. I am so disappointed in him. I wish he would have just told me and told me not to tell anybody. But OPSEC, I do understand him, but also what a traitor, right? Didn't tell me, God. But anyways, his only daughter, how dare he? But anyway, so he was telling me that basically we have recaptured enough ammo in our possession that, yes, I will be on here tomorrow. I'm on here every day. And I deliver news about Ukraine every single day. And also, for those of you guys who just joined, who are new here, I would highly suggest you follow, because about next week, I have an interview with a fighter of Azov Battalion who was in Azovstal, who was in Mariupol, and who was also a Russian POW. And unlike most of the interviews that have been released, it's not only going to be subtitled, it's also going to be dubbed over with English, and it's going to be released in 2 languages, the original and English, so you guys are able to listen to it. And this is going to be a very phenomenal, incredible interview that is aimed at you understanding who Azov Battalion is, what Azov Battalion does, and what kind of a hell and back they went through in Mariupol, in Azovstal, and in Russian captivity. So I'm interviewing them on Monday or Tuesday. That's when they're back to their home base, and not home base, but where their home is now, because they are from Mariupol. But basically, I am going to do the interview on Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to send it back to OPSEC the second that I edit it, because it cannot be live. It'll have to be a video. They have to approve it. I'm going to send it to OPSEC, and the second that OPSEC okays it, I'm going to release it. So I would say maybe Friday next week or Monday the week after, we're going to have an interview with an Azovstal defender and a Mariupol defender. And I personally am very excited to talk to him. My questions have been approved by OPSEC, and I am very, very looking forward to this interview, because they're heroes. So another thing that I wanted to say is this is where my ADHD kind of drove me into a different direction. But my dad has been saying that we have captured enough ammunition back from Russia and from back from us, basically our ammunition that we lost in Kupiansk and in Izum, that we have enough to hold us over up until Lend-Lease kicks in. So far, thank you, Mike. So for those of you who also don't know, I also stream on TikTok, and TikTok has these little gifts. And so sometimes someone sends me a little gift and I like to say thank you because I really appreciate it. So basically, yes. So basically we so far have enough ammunition to keep us, to basically hold us over until Lend-Lease kicks in. So far, I know a lot of people are concerned that Ukraine might not be able to hold up all of these offensives that we started because of the supply issues. But this is the answer to that. Yes, there is not enough American and not enough Western weapons coming, but we have just recaptured bases upon bases of ammunition from Russians. So, you know, there is a joke within Ukraine and within the Ukrainian community and within like the, Ukraine invasion Twitter that, well, soon Ukraine is not going to need the Lend-Lease with all the ammunition that Russia is giving us. So the joke is the Russian Lend-Lease of the weapons, except we don't got to pay them back because half of them are ours. But so, okay, the next on the docket is Washington intends to impose new sanctions against Russians who support the position of the Russian authorities regarding Ukraine, said James O'Brien, coordinator of the American sanctions policy. My message to the Russians, as always, is that tomorrow will be worse. Those who choose to support the Kremlin's line are likely to face some consequences. Details on how and when we will do this will be provided at a later date, O'Brien said. After the waiver of the simplified visa regime from Monday, the EU countries will be able to issue visas to Russians to visit one country without the right to access another Schengen area. For example, if the country that issued the visa is ready to let the applicant in and others have objections. Instructions from the European Commission. The consulates of the EU countries are recommended to increase the terms for issuing visas to Russians up to a maximum of 45 days for thorough checks. The European Commission also invites the EU countries to take a closer look at the Russians and, in the event of a threat to EU security, refuse to issue visas or cancel existing ones. So here is an interesting thing, right? A lot of the consulates in Russia, European consulates, have left. So Russians can't necessarily easily go to a consulate and request a visa. In a lot of cases, Russians are going to have to travel to the border of the country to request a visa. And so that limits them to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Finland, right? That also limits them to Poland because Kaliningrad, and it also limits them to the countries that are bordering Georgia, right? But here is the thing. Thank you, Karine. But here is the thing. Lithuania is not going to issue them visas. Latvia is not going to issue them visas. Estonia is not going to issue them visas, and neither will Finland. Because Finland, Latvia, the Baltics quite literally were advocating for a complete ban on Russian visas to begin with. So that ship has sailed. So I am not quite sure what they're going to do. They're going to have to go to Georgia. And in Georgia, they're going to have to go to the embassies of these European countries and then try to request visas there, which makes it much more difficult because you already have to spend money to go to Georgia. You have to spend money on the accommodation in Georgia. Not a lot of people have that money, obviously. So Russians, basically, this is not a visa ban, but this is as close to a visa ban that it might get. And this is as effective as the visa ban because another option they have is flying to Turkey or flying to Emirates, which Emirates is incredibly expensive, and Turkey is not a cheap flight for them either, especially because now it's like also a loop that they have to take. So yes, and another problem is that most countries are not going to issue them visas. Most European countries are going to deny them. And now, because the simplification agreement has been disbanded, they don't have to even give them they don't even have to give them a semblance of a reason why. So this is going to be a very, very crucial turn of events because it does look like Russians are not going to be able to get visas really. And if they're going to be able to get visas, it's going to be really difficult, really time consuming, really costly. The European Union decided to increase the wait time during which they're going to be looking at your application for the visa. It is now 3 times as expensive as it used to be. And to top it off, it is also, you are going to have to provide much more documents on financial security, much more documents on a lot of other ships, a lot of other stuff. Sorry, someone commented ship on TikTok, and so I just quite like that. Okay. The U.S. Treasury has published a preliminary plan for a mechanism for capping Russian oil prices. The embargo on U.S. imports will remain in place. The ban on the sea transportation of oil will come into force on December 5th. Oil products on February 5th, 2023. The United States is ready to apply sanctions to companies that buy oil more than the established price ceiling. Countries that agree to the application of limit will have the opportunity to participate in pricing. Also, in the end, so I want to say in like 30 minutes or so, when we're done with the news briefing for today of everything that happened in Europe and Ukraine pertaining to Ukraine for the past 24 hours, I'm also going to go on Twitter and I'm going to show you a bunch of like different videos of what has been happening. I'm going to read you a bunch of tweets from different news sources that I follow that are credible. And we're going to be talking a little more about the offensive itself. And we're going to be talking a little more about its significance, about the cities that have been captured, the cities that have been said to have been captured, and stuff like that. So stay tuned. President Putin believed that this invasion would demonstrate Russia's military might. Instead, the Russian military is turning to North Korea and Iran for supplies it needs, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said. At the same time, according to the head of the State Department, the capabilities of the armed forces of Ukraine are growing thanks to the military leadership of the country, the courage of Ukrainian defenders, and the support of allies and partners. Vladimir Putin counted on the fact that Western countries would eventually reduce economic pressure on Russia. Instead, however, the allies have banded together amid Russian threats to tighten economic sanctions with serious consequences for the Russian economy. Russia can no longer support, let alone modernize, key sectors of the economy, from car manufacturing to military exports. They cannot replace weapons that have already been used in Ukraine, Blinken said. So that is actually a very interesting point from Secretary Blinken, because one of the things that I've been noticing is that a lot of the vehicles that Russia is using as military vehicles are those that have last been manufactured in 1975. Some of those vehicles are older than some of us are. And I mean by far. Those vehicles have been manufactured in 1975. 75. That makes them almost 50 years old. And think about it. Not maintained engines, not maintained anything. These cars are barely running. A lot of them are just quite literally stopping. Like they just cease to be able to operate. So that's a very interesting point too. In the recently liberated village of Kharkovo, Kharkiv region, burial places of victims of Russian occupiers have already been discovered. After the village was liberated, a local resident turned to the national police with a statement about the crime committed by the Russian military. The victims have signs of torture. So this is another thing that I wanted to bring up that a lot of us don't think about when we are being incredibly happy about all of the successes of the Ukrainian military. One is the dark side of liberating territories is that we're going to find out about all of the horrendous crimes that Russians have committed on those territories, like Bucha, like Mariupol, you know, everything that we know and things that we haven't known. And Kherson has been occupied. There have been a record number of filtration camps registered in Kherson that Russians have been using. So it is going to be a very, very bittersweet discovery. And quite frankly, I am very scared to find out what they're going to find in Kherson, because it is looking like it's going to be quite tragic. And those are the things that no one's thinking about, you know, when we're talking about liberating territories. Also, Tony says, quit saying it like that, I'm older. Well, Tony, car ages and human ages are very different thing. Car ages and human ages are totally different thing. A 20-year-old car that's running, unless it's been like in pristine condition and a collector's item, you know, it's very different. I'm not saying that you are old at 50 or at 70. I'm saying that a car is old at 50 or at 70, especially if that car has not been maintained since 1975 when it was first manufactured. That is a very, very different point. I'm not trying to offend you. My mother is 54. She's young as hell, and I do not think that she's old. My grandmother is 73, and she's, you know, very, very good, and I do not think she's old either. In fact, every single time she says she's old, I want to slap her because, you know, Grandma, you still wear heels. What are you going to tell me? Anyways, so yes, so one of the things that people don't think about is the atrocities of the liberation. And another thing that I want to tell you guys is that there are a lot of military men and women from Ukraine that are dying. Because that's what a gigantic counteroffensive like that entails. And we're going to be hearing about a lot of losses from the Ukrainian side. Like, all of these amazing games do not come without losses. And those are very brave military men and women who are going into combat and sacrificing their lives knowingly and willingly to stand up and protect their country. So that is also another dark side of a very successful military operation, which this is proving to be. And also, Danon says, I'm still an athlete. Well, yes, if you want to look, you know, I have a YouTube short, and it's about my grandfather, who actually trains the Armed Forces of Ukraine artillery for their physical prep. So he wrote the physical prep manual. He also has the Presidential Award for his contribution to the athleticism of the Ukrainian military that he received last year, or maybe in 2020, I don't remember. But I also take a lot of my information and analysis from my grandfather, because he quite literally works with the military, and he trains them for their physical fitness, basically. And so my grandfather used to be a gymnast, a very, very, very popular gymnast in the USSR, and he still can do a headstand and an assisted handstand. And so I have a video talking about my grandfather and showing you literally what and showing you what he can still do on pictures and on in a video with pictures and stuff like that. Basically him back in the day and him today, because a month ago or so he was in Israel visiting a friend, and they recreated some of the photos from their youth, and it was very sweet to watch. So yeah, I come from a family of athletes, so I fully do not think that an age is anything. It's all about how you take care of yourself. So anyways, according to the sociological survey by the ZDF TV channel, about 70% of Germans are ready to support Ukraine, even despite high energy prices. Oh, and also, if that gives you any more, I get a lot of Americans who tell me I'm a woman and I'm talking out of my ass and I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me tell you, my grandfather practically raised our Minister of Defense, because our Minister of Defense, Reznikov, is my grandfather's best friend's son. Late best friends. So don't tell me I don't know enough about the military. And if you want to listen to my forecasts, I can't, or prognosis, or my analysis, I can't believe I have to put it out there. But I feel like, I have gotten this so many times that we're just going to get over it now. And most people who watch me know this. So, and there it goes. The UN has confirmed more than 14,000 civilian casualties in 6 months of all-out war, DW reports. Among them, 5,767 civilians were killed and 8,292 were injured. However, the international organization emphasizes that the real numbers are likely much higher. As of September 9th, during the counteroffensive, the armed forces of Ukraine liberated about 2,500 square kilometers in the Kharkiv region, according to analysts of the Institute for the Study of War. And again, this map is now outdated, because one of the jokes among the war analysts and international war experts is that you cannot really draw maps anymore, because they become irrelevant the second that you publish them. And so this is about the same with this map from the Institute of the Study of War, because it shows quite a few cities here, like it's Lysychansk and Izum, that still isn't captured, but now it has been. So this map now is irrelevant as well. Russian positions in Novokakhovka after HIMARS anti-aircraft missile strikes. Take a look. This is from Novokakhovka, which is another strategic object for both Ukraine and Russia. Also, yes, guys, please do me a favor and don't forget to like this stream if you enjoy it, because that way it's going to be pushed to more people and more people can find out the news from the front lines of Ukraine. So Sean Chernov says, didn't they just talk about 700 to 1,000? They just go even faster. Yes, so that's the whole point, is that the Ukrainian counteroffensive has been growing in such record speeds and record amounts that nobody can keep up with it. Because, well, first of all, Russian line of defense has been quite literally broken, and it's kind of falling like a card house, because again, their ammo base is Kupiansk, ammo base is Izum, their railroad connections, Kupiansk and Izum. And so it's been, in a lot of places, they just retreat. They quite literally run away from the Ukrainian army. And also in a lot of the places, I've been hearing from people who are on the front lines, because I do happen to have a few people that I know that are there. They say that when Russians come in close contact with Ukrainians, with Ukrainian military, they see guns and then they run away. They're not used to combat. They don't know how to handle a gun. They do not know how to. They're not professional military. They do not know how to fight. They know how to shell, but they don't necessarily know how to fight, right? So when they don't have artillery, when they don't have their shells, when they don't have like a big tank to protect them, they don't know what to do. So a lot of them quite literally see the Ukrainian military, they see weapons, and they just run. And they retreat. It's like the city of Izum has been surrendered. The Ukrainian military didn't even have to fight for it, pretty much, basically. Like some little fighting, but it wasn't like an offensive. It was literally the Ukrainian military walked into the city, and they were met with almost no obstacles. Yeah, the tank video. Everybody has seen it. It's ridiculous. But one of my friends is a combat medic. He's also one of our community. I met him through these live streams actually, and he has volunteered. He's American. He's volunteered to go back to the front lines of Ukraine, and he has been there for, I want to say, a month. Right? Has St. Fallon been there for like a month? I think so. At this point, so he has been giving us a lot of updates too, and he's in. As far as, well, he's in the front line, but I'm not going to tell you the region, but he's like at the very, very front. And he says that they pick up and go and keep going further and further every day. So they have not stayed anywhere. Oh my God, Nico, that's so funny. Nico on YouTube says, I'm actually impressed with the Russians for the first time in this war. They apparently really excel in running fast. That's the funniest thing. Oh my gosh. But basically, also there was a photo that I personally found, just like my favorite part of this entire situation was that a Russian soldier was running away from the Ukrainian armed forces and quite literally got shot in the ass. And I thought it was like the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And they literally showed a photo of his ass with a bullet in there, and I was like, oh my God, this is the best. Like, you can't even make this up. But basically, so all of the combat medics on the front lines have been saying that they've been picking up and going deeper and going deeper and going deeper, and so they don't stay long in any place because, well, the front line is moving this fast. You basically just have to pick up and go every day, right? So here is a clip that I want to show you of the Armed Forces of Ukraine singing the national anthem. You might have seen this video around, but you might have not known what this video means, because I quite literally haven't seen anybody caption it, and it's just like a bunch of Ukrainian military singing the anthem. But this was a couple of hours, some say 2, before the Kharkiv offensive and the Kherson offensive. свіженький, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. With that said, this is the flag of Ukraine in front of the Kupiansk regional administration. So Kupiansk has been recaptured by Ukraine as of yesterday, but the official news sources are only talking about it today because, again, OPSEC and Twitter and OPSEC are two things that do not correlate with each other well. The United States is ready to impose sanctions on companies buying Russian oil at a price above the limit, according to the US Treasury. The EU admits possible exit of Hungary from its membership. According to Czech government Minister for European Affairs Mikuláš Bek, Hungary's recent actions call into question its continued membership in the EU and make it theoretically possible to expel the country from the bloc, which would be a historical event because that has never happened before. And usually countries just get limitations, they get their rights sort of reworked and revoked, right? Like they get less say and stuff like that. This would be a historical thing because Hungary right now is acting like a fascist regime. Viktor Orban is a fascist, and Hungary has been standing with Russia on all questions Ukraine related, and they have been basically vetoing everything that has to do with capping the Russian oil prices and the Russian gas prices and stuff like that. And so here, some of the members of the EU are coming out and saying that it is possible to expel them from the bloc because of what they have been doing. Your wife is stuck in Hungary? Oh no, is she Hungarian? Charles III officially became King of Great Britain. This was announced by the Accession Council. Woohoo! I mean, I'm very, very sorry to everybody who is from the UK on your loss. I just personally am so not a fan of Charles. There is a whole video I did on it. I don't think it's my prerogative to talk about what I think about the monarchy as a whole, because obviously I don't hold a Commonwealth passport and it's literally it's not my place. But I think that it's very different to talk about whether the monarchy should exist, and it's a very different thing to talk about how you feel about the new monarch, because their image in the world is very important to their image across the world is very important, because I feel like that makes or breaks international relationships in a lot of levels. However, somebody from the outside talking about whether the monarchy should exist or whether it doesn't is the same as I get annoyed at people talking about the Ukrainian politics and who we should or should not elect, being like, you know nothing about our politics, please stop. So I would never talk about that, and I don't have an opinion on whether the monarchy should exist or should not exist that I would voice publicly, because it's not my prerogative, again, and absolutely not my place. Okay, video of how the armed forces of Ukraine hit the occupiers near Kupiansk. So these are Russians running away. These are Russians running away, and I don't support the monarchy at all. Never have. If others do, that's their decision. But that's like my whole point, it's like I'm not gonna judge, neither am I gonna give my opinion, because I'm not, I don't live in the Commonwealth. It's just kind of like not my place. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock arrived in Kyiv on an unannounced visit. She will meet with her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba, but for security reasons, the full schedule of her visit has not been released. As the head of the foreign ministry herself stated, her main task is to counteract the war fatigue that exists in Germany. We continue to support Ukraine for as long as necessary, including through the supply of weapons, humanitarian, and financial assistance, she said. On September 10th, 5 vessels with Ukrainian grain on board left. The Ministry of Infrastructure reported in total they transport 90,000 tons of agricultural products to Africa and Europe. Ukrainian warplanes are using car tracks as their tarmac. The Ukrainian Air Force uses Ukrainian roads to maintain high mobility. Video oh my gosh, video coming from the head of the Vinnytsia Regional Military Administration, Serhiy Borzov. Here's what that looks like. Yeah, that's something entirely up to the UK citizens. That's the thing, that I respect everybody's opinion on the monarchy as long as they're from the UK. If they're not from the UK or they're not from the Commonwealth, then like our opinion on the monarchy doesn't matter. A few more victories and the Russians will scatter, according to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov. In an interview with RBC Ukraine, the defense minister said that even a few minor victories are enough for the Russians to start fleeing. I am convinced that a few more successes at the front are sure, albeit small, but victories, and the Russian troops will run and run. Believe me, because today we're destroying their supply chains, warehouses, and so on. And the question arises, where will they go? And morality, it will be like an avalanche. One line of defense will falter and it will collapse, he said. The head of the Ministry of Defense stressed that the occupiers have no morals, what to fight for, and the Ukrainians know that they stand for their country, their family, and their land. The Ukrainians have no other choice but to survive as a nation, people, country, and people. Again. The security service showed a photo from the occupied Kupiansk, Kharkiv region, in which special agents of the TSSOA of the Security Service of Ukraine. We will liberate our land to the last centimeter. Let's move on. Glory to Ukraine, said the Security Service of Ukraine. And that's what it looks like. And I cannot wait to see Russians Photoshop this into a swastika and say that this is what the Ukrainian army, does. Also, a lot of you guys missed when I was talking about the Donetsk airport and how Azov became internationally recognized or became a terrorist organization, neo-Nazi organization in the international arena. But that will, the video interview will help with that, because honestly, they're heroes. And I wish you to listen to these questions. None of these questions are like anything, anything that is biased or anything like that. I'm just quite literally asking these guys, well, this one guy first, and then I hope that I can do a couple of more rounds of interviews about their experience, what Azov is for them, what the military is for them, why they joined the military, and what happened during their during the siege of Azovstal, and what happened to them in the Russian prison, basically. Dmytro Kozatsky, press officer of the Azov Regiment, who is currently in Russian captivity, won the prestigious PX3 photo contest in Paris. His photo series with Azovstal took first place in the press war category and second place in the overall press category. Take a look. This photo will be recognized by many because it was everywhere. This is one of the Azovstal defenders looking at the beam of light, because there wasn't enough light in Azovstal. It's the basement. They were in the basements of Azovstal, and this is how they were getting light through the shelled through bunker. And this photo was published everywhere. It went viral at some point. And so it was taken by a press officer of the Azov Regiment, and he has won an award in the prestigious PX3 photo contest in Paris, and he won 2 awards. One is he is in the first place in the press war category, and in the second place in the overall press category. And he is currently in the Russian captivity, and I really hope that as soon as possible we're going to be able to free all of our defenders. The village of Savinsy, Kharkiv region, a Ukrainian soldier is holding A flag of Ukraine near the building of the village council. Good news are on the way. This looks like, and his face has been very, smiled out so no one would know his identity. In the war against Ukraine, Russia lost 57% of its missile potential. According to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov, the NATO countries, probably fearing a direct clash with the Russian Federation, did not dare to close the sky. However, the Ukrainian air defense forces themselves began to successfully shoot down missiles. Two factors. We have learned our unique specialists work wonders. I recently met with our Air Force commander, Mr. Oleshchuk. He said that he likes that our guys have learned how to make the same buk, but the Russians, according to our intelligence, have used upwards of more than 57% of their missile potential, Reznikov said. And Reznikov is the Minister of Defense, if anybody needs the reminder. Spanish army will train the Ukrainian combat units in Saragossa, reports El Mundo, referring to the Ministry of Defense of Spain. Ramstein 5 has set a course for long-term support of Ukraine. The countries agreed to prepare the Ukrainian military for military operations, says Alexei Reznikov, and more is to come. The German Foreign Affairs Minister Annalena Baerbock said that Germany will assist Ukraine in demining of its territory. This is the minister's second visit since the war broke out. Russia shelled one of the districts of Kharkiv with multiple rocket launch systems. There are victims. The mayor of the city, Ihor Terechov, reports that one person was unalived. The shells hit a residential building, an administrative building, and production building. A fire broke out at the site. Yeah, Zina has, I've seen the map from Zina. Kupiansk is very important because Kupiansk is a railroad crossing. It's a railroad crossing hub. It's incredible. There is like 6 railroad lines coming from different directions into Kupiansk. And Kupiansk also is very strategically located in the northeastern Ukraine. As to the front lines, Kupiansk is also a former ammo base storage facility, now again an ammo base, an ammo storage facility base. So yeah, it is a very important it's a very, very strategically important place. Hi, Black Viking. Good to see you. The Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov on Putin's ability to convince Lukashenko to enter the war against Ukraine. He certainly can try to force Lukashenko. Belarus is factually annexed by Russia. But my observations during almost 7 months allow me to know Yep. One sec. Should be back on. Sorry, guys. Sometimes my camera overheats. So pardon. I will put it back. And there we go. Sorry. Small little technical difficulties. No, I do have that. My camera sometimes overheats and it overheated. But yes, so I will reread this again. He certainly can try to force Lukashenko. Belarus is factually annexed by Russia, but my observations during almost 7 months allow me to notice lack of ardent desire of Belarusian people to join the war against Ukraine, and Belarusian government can see that. Here's the thing. Belarusian people are not going to join the war against Ukraine, and if Lukashenko forces them to, it is going to be the end of Lukashenko. It's not a GoPro, David. It's a Sony Alpha ZV something. It's a pretty good camera, but it for some reason really doesn't like very long streams. Although it's a streaming camera, but I'm gonna bring it into maintenance because I feel like maybe I'm doing something wrong. Oh my gosh. One of my mods is going to respond to you where I studied English. I just go over this every day, and I would like to not concentrate on that too much today. But so yes, it's going to be the end of Lukashenko because the entirety of Belarus people are going to rebel against him. And another thing is that Belarus is a country of 8 million people, and a lot of them fled in 2020 after the rebellions of Belarusian people. And another thing that I would like to point out here is that Belarusian military is not huge, and Lukashenko sees what's happening. Lukashenko is not an idiot. It's not like he's brainwashed with the Kremlin, you know, it's just that he's working with the Kremlin because it's useful for him to stay in power. And he's seeing what's happening in Ukraine. He's not going to sacrifice his entire military potential to help Russia because they don't have that many troops. They don't have that much ammunition. They don't have that much technology. It's a small country. It's a country with a population of 8 million people. And their entire military potential is not going to be enough to even like throw it at one of the areas of Ukraine. So not going to happen. The Russian army confirmed that it left Balaklia and Izum. According to the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, within the last 3 days, an operation on drawdown and relocation of the groups of forces stationed in Izum and Balaklia to the territory of Donetsk People's Republic was completed. Utilizing a range of diverting and demonstrative actions with imitation of real combat action. The ministry also claimed that over 2,000 of Ukrainian foreign combatants were killed, while over 100 units of armed vehicles and artillery were eliminated in a span of 3 days. So here's the thing: I'd like to let you know that according to Russia has taken out 200 Ukrainian HIMARS units, while we had 20. Okay, but they have taken out 200. So now Russia is claiming that they have taken out over 2,000 Ukrainian and foreign combatants and 100 units of armored vehicles and artillery in the span of 3 days. In the span of 3 days that they've been running away faster than the speed of light, they have accomplished to do all of these victorious things. Also, for all of those of you who are new here, I like to do this thing. Anytime something is coming out from the Russian official's mouth, I read it with a special accent. So I'm going to reread it with a special accent. Within the last 3 days of operation on drawdown and relocation of the group of forces stationed in Izum and Balaklia to the territory of Donetsk People's Republic was completed. Utilizing a range of diverting and demonstrative actions with imitation of real combat action. I'm wondering, I really wonder who writes these plots for them, because to be fair, these people could be making lots of money in Hollywood, and I do not know why they're wasting their action movie potential on Russian propaganda. The Ukrainian armed forces are also pushing forward in the south, covering from 2 to several dozens of kilometers on different locations. Soon we will certainly announce the settlements that are happily greeting our soldiers now, reports spokeswoman of the Operational Command South, Natalia Humaniuk. You said I have a Finnish accent. Oh, we actually, oh my gosh, where is Novis? Novis, do you have YouTube? One of my moderators is Finnish. A Russian soldier, a member of the illegal armed formation of the so-called DNR, tells about the refusal to advance even for money and asks to go home, the main director of intelligence of Ukraine. Oh, funny you say that I need to be a voice actress. You know what? I am going to show off a little bit over here, but I will show you this incredible thing, which was on the Instagram of the president of Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky over here. I am actually, now I guess I could call myself a voiceover artist as well. I'm not Finnish. One of my mods is Finnish. I can probably call myself also a part-time voiceover artist now, because I am working with United 24 and I do voiceovers for now one of their rubrics, and there are a couple that might be in making. But if you follow Zelensky and you know this video,
fighting for its independence, in
this is me.
839, the state of Rus was formed around Kyiv. 800 years later, the Tsardom was
thank you so much.
The name Ukraine was first
Thank
used
you,
in
Natalie.
the 13th century. Cross civilizations became decisive in the Mongol battle.
Yes. So that video, and then there was also the other video that I.
So how come are Ukrainians so skilled in combat? While the US had the Wild West,
Ukraine had the wild fields.
These lands were sparsely populated until the 15th century when
yeah.
Cossacks established.
But yes, so I am a voice actress, if I will say so myself. So there is that. But basically, yes, I have been doing that for a little while, and it's becoming a weekly rubric now. And I don't know if Zelensky is going to be posting it weekly, but they are very much making it into a weekly rubric for United 24. And so there is that. How much are you getting paid for propaganda? I am not, but if you'd like to pay me for Russian propaganda, no thank you. Are you trying to recruit me? It's not gonna work, honey. I don't work for Russians. Anyway, so I'm going to play you this recording. It's a recording from a from a Russian soldier who's a member of an illegal armed formation of the so-called DNR, and he's talking about the refusal to advance even more money. So, Yulia is going to be in the next Minions movie. I would love that. I would do the next Minions movie. Okay, here we go. Mirror your video. You guys know that I really like Ukraine Now is an incredible publication, and they do these amazing short stories, and I would really, really like to I would really, really like, they also actually reached out to me, but I'll talk about it later. But I would really want to.
Начали писать, что кое-куда вас хотят вперед.
Да.
Ну вы, как говорите, нет.
Вот там,
нет.
Да.
Sorry,
типа закона такого нет, чтобы вас заставить.
Да.
Sorry, 1 second. I am having a technical difficulty here. So pardon me for 1 moment. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's start over from this. Sorry. I am going to do, we're going to start over because there was a lot of echo and there was a lot of stuff like that. So let's start from the beginning. There we go.
Начали писать, что кое-куда вас хотят вперед.
Да.
Ну вы, как говорите, нет.
Вот там,
нет. Да. Типа закона такого нет, чтобы вас заставить.
Да. Все это правда.
Так поняла, что сегодня нападение было на Херсон, но вроде отбили.
Да.
Вроде отбили украинцев, там сегодня целый день новости читаю, что ж ты думаешь? Ой, какой-то 109-й полк, какой-то мужик выставил видео там в течение 10-15 секунд, что нападение, из танков обстреливали, в общем.
Ясно. Все это правда, да.
Нахер уже эти деньги, просто уже
мы
надоело.
сегодня так ему и сказали. Нахер мне твои срались бабки, блядь, вези домой. А он намекает о том, что если вы сажете оружие, я говорю, мы оружие сажать не будем, потому что это дезертирство, понимаешь, это тюрьма. Вези домой, потому что уже полгода прошло, уже все на пределе.
So these are Russian soldiers near Kherson who do not want to fight even for money anymore. They don't care for it. But the thing is that they're not being allowed to lay down arms. Not that I feel bad for them, because obviously, well, why did you come here in the first place? What did you think you were going to be greeted with bread and butter or something? But at the same time, this is a very good sign for the offensive, because Russian soldiers are not having it anymore, not even for the money. And the head of the so-called DPR, Denis Pushilin, left occupied Donetsk, according to media. The media also reports Pushilin's statement where he asked to be dismissed from the post of the DPR head. You know what's really funny? This is something that's going to be funny to my mods, actually. Something that's going to be funny for my mods, actually. Because today on our group call, we have a mod chat and we do group calls sometimes because we are we're a community. And basically, one of the things that I told them today is that I saw a video of Denis Pushilin, who is the head of the so-called DPR, and he was in a car speeding away. You could see that he was quite literally speeding away in a car, and it was obvious that he was fleeing Donetsk region, right? And he was talking to the people, and he was like, "My dear compatriots, I am proud of our armed formation. I'm proud of our Donbass, of our Russian Donbass. And I want to tell you that, I am in touch with all of the appropriate services, and I'm in touch with all of the appropriate administrations. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. The situation is really difficult, but everything is going to be fine. And he said everything's going to be fine about 11 times. And I was like, on the call, I was joking and I was saying, like, he is literally running away to Russia. Like, this is very obvious. And so lo and behold, here is the statement from him asking to be dismissed as the head of the DPR Republic. And here is him basically saying that he had fled and left. There we go. Well, head of the DPR Republic, everybody. Ukraine is getting ready for the most difficult winter in years, together with the European Union, said the Ukrainian Prime Minister Donetsk. He says that Ukraine is ready to consider opening the quotas for export of coal to Poland. That would allow to supply Poland with much needed 100,000 tons of coal in September. Power supply to Poland will also be increased. Restoration of the power supply lines from Chmielnicki nuclear power plant to the Polish substation in Rzeszów will be completed ahead of schedule, which will allow to export additional 1,000 MWT. So another thing that actually about the winter, that's the coldest winter, about the coldest winter in years, one of the things that I wanted to say is that Donetsk airport, the battle for Donetsk airport in 2014, which is why bringing back the Donetsk airport is so important this time around, was in the winter. And that 244-day defense that the cyborgs held of the airport was in the winter. So they were doing it through one of the coldest winters Ukraine has also seen. It was horrific, and they were able to hold the line of defense for 244 days. Ukraine will receive about $530 million from the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, according to the Ukrainian Prime Minister Donetsk. The women's national team of Ukraine won the last match in the qualifying round of the European Volleyball Championship 2023. The Ukrainians beat the national team of Cyprus 3-0 in sets. Trophy weaponry left behind by the Russian soldiers fleeing due to the Ukrainian Armed Forces offensive. Igla portable air defense systems, Kornet portable anti-tank systems, RPG-30 Kryuk, Zanos RPG portable multipurpose grenade launcher, Rag-2 Agland rocket-propelled assault grenade, Rag-1 Tavolga-1, and a lot more types of weaponry left behind by the enemy forces abandoning their positions. Take a look. Thank you, Naniria. Miss, what did you guys on TikTok miss? Hi, Canada. Oh yeah, they have been saying that Kherson offensive has been a total failure. I got a little too excited. That Kherson offensive has been a total failure. Meanwhile, they have been Russian media has been saying a lot of stuff, and none of it ever proves to be real. So my dad joked and said, when Russians were talking about a 3-day offensive and taking something in 3 days, were they referring to the Kharkiv offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces? Because it looks like they were. Because you know how they were saying they would take Ukraine in 3 days? This is a destroyed Russian tank. Just some pleasant stuff to see. Izum in Kharkiv region has been recaptured by the armed forces of Ukraine. Here is a photo repainted back into the Ukrainian flag colors. And some more destroyed Russian equipment over here. I'm also going to check the Kyiv Independent for some quick updates because these are more like, these have more descriptions to them. And then the Kyiv Independent usually has just like some quick facts. So let me check their updates. Hi. And also for those of you who are ladies, obviously gentlemen are not going to be interested in it, but I am very bad in makeup and I used to never use makeup. But recently I decided to make my goal for this year to learn how to do it in an okay manner. And so today I did this thing where My makeup is blue and yellow, and I am really trying to represent, you know. So for those of you who are good at makeup, unlike me, please let me know if this is acceptable or appropriate, because this is the first time in my life I learned what blending is, pretty much. But so anyways, what about Donetsk airport? Donetsk airport has been recaptured back reportedly by the Ukrainian armed forces. Okay. Institute for the Study of War as of 2:13 a.m., according to Kyiv Independent, said that Ukraine captured estimated 2,500 square kilometers in Kharkiv Oblast counteroffensive. So that's just Kharkiv, and that's 2,500 square kilometers. Russia fired missiles at Dnipropetrovsk Oblast overnight. One woman killed by Russian shelling in Kharkiv Oblast. Ukrainian forces reportedly reached city center of Kupiansk, Kharkiv Oblast, reportedly confirmed. 383 children were unalived and 746 were wounded by Russia's war in Ukraine. Ukraine shoots down 157.5 million worth of Russian aircraft missiles in 3 days. Ukrainian TV camera operator killed in combat during liberation of Balaklia, Kharkiv Oblast. Oleksiy Yurchenko, a cameraman for the Priama television channel, enlisted in the Ukrainian army at the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. Alongside years of experience as a camera operator, Yurchenko had previously fought in the Donbass in 2015 to 2016. Russia has stolen more than 1 million tons of grain from Luhansk Oblast. Over 8,000 Ukrainian men have tried to leave Ukraine illegally since February 24th. Lovely figures. Latvian president becomes first world leader to stay overnight in Kyiv. Russia will face a new Nuremberg trial after their defeat. I'm convinced that the tribunal and the future Nuremberg await them all, even if they are judged in absentia or posthumously, Ukraine's defense minister Oleksiy Reznikov told RBK Ukraine. Ukrainian army keeps making progress on the southern front. 9 tanks were destroyed and 70 Russian soldiers were killed in the day's fighting. Humaniuk also mentioned the 2 howitzers used to shell Nikopol from across the Dnipro River were destroyed by Ukrainian fire. Also, here is an interesting thing. So a lot of these sources that I use that I don't necessarily cite here, because again, are saying that there's going to be a lot of jaw-dropping news tomorrow from the other bank of the Dnipro River. So this is talking about Kherson mostly. So let's wait for that, because something big is coming tomorrow. Continued Western military support is crucial for the counteroffensive. The courage of Ukrainian troops, coupled with with Western weapons, enabled the current breakthrough, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Oleg Nikolenko wrote on Twitter. Ukraine will seek $1.5 billion in U.S. financial aid for purchase of gas. 5 more grain ships leave the ports of Odessa. Ukrainian troops confirmed the entering of Kupiansk. We already did that. The next proxy confirms Russian retreat from Izum. Also confirmed. Ramstein 5 meeting success. Ukrainian troops confirm entering Izum. Ukrainian forces advanced to outskirts of Lysychansk, Luhansk Oblast. Apparently, Lysychansk has been captured too. I am going to look after the stream on Twitter, and if so, I will retweet it, but there have been evidence of them being in Lysychansk. Ukrainian troops fight Russian forces on outskirts of Liman, Donetsk Oblast. Liman has been captured. Kupiansk and Izum liberated as Russian defenses collapse amid rapid Ukrainian advance in Kharkiv Oblast. 4 days into Ukraine's surprise counteroffensive in Kharkiv, Russian forces have retreated from the key cities of Kupiansk and Izum, signaling a near total collapse of the Russian line of defense in the area. The liberation of these areas, some located over 60 kilometers behind where the front line stood a week ago, represent the most significant Ukrainian achievement in the full-scale war since... Oh my gosh, this camera, 1 second. I'm just gonna do this. Okay, I'm just gonna use my webcam. Sorry, the quality here is gonna be horrifying, but we don't want this to keep overheating. The liberation of these areas, some located over 60 kilometers behind where the front line stood a week ago, represent the most significant Ukrainian achievement in the full-scale war since Russian troops withdrew from northern Ukraine in early April. Russia claims it withdrew from part of Kharkiv Oblast to boost its efforts in Donetsk Oblast. That is also a deflection mechanism. They did not do that. They also posted a lot of like reinforcements coming to Ukraine. But if you look at the videos, they have been geolocated, and these videos are 170 kilometers away from where the front line currently stands. So these reinforcements are not coming to Donetsk or Luhansk. These troops are quite literally retreating and running away. Russians in occupied parts of Kharkiv Oblast tell civilians to evacuate to Russia. Russia's state-controlled media TASS reported that Russian collaborator Vitaly Ganchev said that all residents of the region should evacuate. The Ukrainian military liberated about 30 settlements in Kharkiv Oblast, including Kupiansk, Balaklia, and Izum, after a major counter-offensive. Russian military fires 9 missiles, 10 airstrikes against Ukraine on September 10th. Investigation Bureau detains collaborator serving as chief of police in Balaklia, Kharkiv Oblast. According to the State Bureau of Investigation, the man who was detained in the neighboring town of Kupiansk previously worked as the town's official police chief. When Russia occupied Balaklia in March, he decided to assist the Russian military. On September 9th, the town was liberated by Ukrainian army. This is the consequence of the shelling of Kharkiv, in which 1 person died and 9 people were injured. And this is the video from the spot. And this is the fire that's being taken out. Russian army shelled Dnipropetrovsk Oblast with 6 S-300 surface-to-air missiles. According to Zelensky, Ukrainian army has liberated 2,000 kilometers since the beginning of September, and that is as of 4:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so not updated quite yet. President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a video address that in the past few days alone, around 1,000 kilometers have been liberated amid a massive counteroffensive. It's not a bad decision for Russians to flee, Zelensky said, adding that there will never be a place for occupiers in Ukraine. Latvian President Levits, Ukraine will be strong EU member in relatively short time. Egilis Levits told the Kyiv Independent, Latvia understands very well what it is like to be attacked by Russia, and it's natural for Latvians to want to help Ukraine. And that is all of the news that I have from the official news sources. And now I'm going on to Twitter because there has been there are updates coming and very, very fast from all different directions. And I just want to catch up and make sure that nothing has been missed, because I did talk about, okay, so Le Mans has been confirmed. Le Mans has been confirmed. Vysokopilya Kherson, Ukrainian liberators, Vovchansk. Vovchansk has been confirmed. So more settlements that are key. Okay, well, it's actually much more productive. If you guys want to know more information, I'm going to repost it on Twitter, and you can check the tweets that I repost. I try to repost only valuable information. If it's not confirmed or it's something that's sketchy or something like that, but still interesting, I will quote tweet and I will let you know. So, Sina, come here. Sin, come here. Hey, Sin. So if you would like to see more news, then please go onto my Twitter. It's the same as YouTube. It's the same as TikTok. All of my social media is the same. Rule of thumb is, if you want to find me on social media, it's YEWLEEA. And now I want to actually bring something up. So the fighter of the Azov forces that I am interviewing on Monday, I'm not going to give you the name yet. I'm going to give the name after I record the interview. And if you are part of my Patreon, then you know the name, you know who this is. I have a Patreon, and the link to it is in my bio. And on the Patreon, I post everything before the date, because I know that everybody is there with good intentions, and also everybody who is there is not a Russian troll by any means. So the fighter of the Azov regiment that I'm interviewing on Monday, he's from Mariupol. And his family has lost everything in Mariupol. Now, he hasn't asked me to fundraise for him or anything like that. I asked him for his PayPal because I said that I personally wanted to send him something, but I wanted to see if any of you guys would be interested in donating anything to his PayPal, as he's trying to buy his family an apartment. It could be anything, $5, $10, whatever you guys have. If you are interested, then I'm going to put up his PayPal into the comments, and I'm going to pin it to the page, and you can use it to donate to him. And if you are in TikTok, then my mods can comment it. So let me know if you're interested in his PayPal. I will pin it to the comments, and literally every little bit helps, because they're from Mariupol. Mariupol is the city that, as you know, was besieged. He is one of the people who held the defense of Mariupol, and then Azovstal, and then was a Russian POW. And to top it off, his parents have lost everything. He has lost everything. They do not have absolutely anything. And yeah, and so if you, yeah, I can transfer. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Netlin, I can transfer to him. Okay, so I will give you, YouTube fundraiser needs to be changed out to that. That's very true. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to put his PayPal in under the video. But he's incredible, and this is the guy that I'm going to be interviewing, and this is the interview that you're going to be watching. So if you are interested in donating to him, here PayPal, I'm going to post it right here. 1 second. Oh. And guys, if you are on, if you are mods on TikTok, can you please comment his PayPal so people can see it? So this will be his PayPal. So if you'd like to donate to him, I highly encourage you to do that, because they are selfless. He did not ask me to collect any donations for him, nothing like that. It's just my own initiative. So yes. And guys, mods on TikTok, Carlos, please. Carlos in the studio, I see that you have the email. And if you do donate, please let me know so I can know that some people did donate, so he's not like, where is this coming from? If you have any more questions, if you want to discuss anything, if you have any questions to me, please let me know. I usually hang out for like 10 minutes after the stream and just kind of go over everything. So let me know. Let me know if there is anything, questions, suggestions. Come here. Dog, why are you just standing there? Come here. Sin. Questions, suggestions, anything that you guys might need or want, anything that you might want to ask me. I'm happy to answer everything Ukraine invasion related. The EU does have problems, however, joining the EU will be the biggest benefit for Ukraine and its reconstruction, for sure. Could you talk a bit about what's going on in Russia? So it's actually hard to tell what's going on in Russia, but they have completely circled off the Red Square. There is a lot of military commotion going on there. There is a lot of commotion in general that's going on in basically the predictions are A, the military revolt, B, revolt against Putin, because, well, it's hard to keep the devastation of the invasion away from people at this point. And the other thing, Sin, 1 second, sorry, come here. What's up? Why can't you just, hello, come here. What's up? Come here. Come. Okay. So basically, the idea is that there is some sort of a revolt, and Russian authorities are scared of something. What it is, I don't know, because it's hard to tell, provided that there is so much secrecy around it. And then could be the beginning of the end of the war. Yes. Basically, if Ukraine keeps Kupiansk and if Ukraine keeps Izum and manages to hold on to it, then this is going to be a card house that will keep falling, and Russia will not be able to recover from it. So keeping Kupiansk and keeping Kupiansk and keeping Izum is what is going to result in the point of no return for Russia. There isn't a holiday today for surrounding the Red Square. Also, if there was a holiday, people would not be speculating so much about this. There is no holiday that could have influenced that. Yeah, just saw. Thank you, Netlin. I'll forward it right to him. Thank you so much. But yes. Sorry if I missed it, but is there a Twitter account of yours that I could follow? Yes, it's the same as my Twitter account is the same as my YouTube account. So you can find me on Twitter at Yulia. So I do have this is my Twitter. All of my social media is the same. It's Twitter, Twitch, because I try to stream to as many places as possible to cover as many people with news as possible. Вітання ви з українським корінням. Я українка народжена, і я народилася і виросла в Україні до 16 років. Так що в мене не коріння, в мене я українка ще й з українським паспортом до повного щастя. Do you know what is happening in Belarus? There is not much happening in Belarus right now. They're training, but the likelihood of them joining the invasion is very low. It's actually slim to none unless Putin has some crazy compromising information on Lukashenko that will force Lukashenko to do it. Because as I said earlier, oh, yay! Welcome, Ryan. Welcome to the spy layer. But basically, unless you have, unless Putin has some crazy compromising information that he hasn't used still in Lukashenko to force him into this invasion, into joining this invasion, it's not going to happen because a Belarusian army is small. Belarus is a very small country. So they can't afford to like their forces are not going to make a difference. First of all, second of all, they can't sacrifice all of their forces to make the difference because they're not going to leave the country bare. And third of all, if Lukashenko sends Belarusians into the war in Ukraine, Belarusians are already not even not fond of him. They're waiting for the moment to overthrow him. And also they know what's happening in Ukraine, so they're not going to go to their death. They're quite really going to storm him. And also if there is no military in the country, then the people can revolt. Dino, come on, come here. Come on, move over. Thank you. Oh my gosh, you're shedding so much, dude. Come on. But yeah, so this is what it is. If you want to ask more questions, if you want to know more information, I do have a Patreon paid subscription. I'm not trying to sell you on it or anything, but if you would like to support my work, I have quite literally quit my job and started doing news in the Ukraine invasion and just a lot for the Ukraine invasion, basically fundraising and organizations. And you will find out, if you stick around and you follow me, you'll find out what I've been doing and what I'm doing, because it'll become quite evident. But if you support me, I do have a Patreon. The Patreon link is in my links. It's linked to my YouTube and my About. It's also linked to my TikTok. It's also linked to my Twitch, I believe. But if you want to manually find me on Patreon, it's Spy News Network INTL, which stands for international. And also, if you want a lot more reposts and a lot more catching up on the news, then you can always follow me on Twitter, which is the same as this. And on Patreon, you get basically, if you subscribe, you get some merchandise for subscribing after 3 months of consecutive subscriptions. And to top it off, you also get a lot of kind of say and a lot of guidance through my content, because I always ask you who would you like me to interview next, which I am looking at Azov, and I'm trying to see who stands out to me that I feel like I could have a great conversation with, and I will be asking you guys who you would want to hear from the most. And also, you do get the news before everybody else does. And Cinecam, yeah, there is a lot of photos of the beast. And also, if you are new, let me show you a little trick before I go that my very patriotic dog does. One sec. Cindy, wait. Cindy, no, come back. Okay, sit. Slava Ukraini. Слава нації. Пиздець Російській Федерації. Good girl. Well, come on. You good? You good? Okay. So this is my dog, Cinny. Her name means blue in translation from Ukrainian, and she is our mascot. Oh, you received your spy mug today. That's awesome. We want interview with Zelensky. Oh, well, maybe if I do a bunch of successful interviews with Azov, then maybe that's possible. Alrighty. Well, you guys, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody new who joined. Thank you for everybody who keeps up with Ukraine every day. I will see you on Twitter, and nice to meet you if I met you today. And hopefully I will be seeing you around here more often. I'm live with news every day. Normally I try to do it at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, but these days I'm trying to do it at 4. Cindy, stop eating me. I try to do it at 4. Sin, what are you doing? I try to do it at 4 p.m. because Lizava Ukraina. Ukraina. Oh, interesting. I will ask Novus what that means. But Slava Ukraini, gotcha. But yeah, I lately have been trying to do it at 4 p.m. because that's when the news usually slows down and we know everything for the day. Okay, see you tomorrow. Kieran, I still worry what Putin might do with Russia losing more ground than they have stolen. Actually, this is something that I'm going to cover tomorrow, and I'm going to cover what might happen to Russia in the event of basically when the Russian population finds out and when Ukraine wins the war. So there is a solution to it, and I don't think Putin can do a lot to what has been, I don't think Putin can do a lot. Even if Sinichka, please stop eating your paws. I'm sorry, my dog is going through like an allergy season, and so I need to prevent her from eating her paws. And so yes, so I will see you tomorrow, and we'll talk a little more actually about this subject of what Kieran has been asking. And please don't forget to donate to the Azov fighter if you can. And I will see you tomorrow if you'd like to. It's not a meerkat. It's just a French bulldog. But yeah, okay. Well, it was nice to meet all of you, and see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.